This week on The Startup Life.
When you're radiating a certain energy or a certain emotion, you're going to attract that to yourself. And it's almost I just try it and observe.
All right, Startup Nation. So let's take flight with Kala Philo, creator of MirrorYourBrillianceOnVideo.com. Startup Life begins now.
7, 6, 5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
You'll never have the sacred stone.
Oh, this you crazy mother.
Hey Startup Nation, do you enjoy the startup life? Now you can let the world know with gear from the show. Choose from the label yourself, make your own look, and making money t-shirts to tell your story of your path of entrepreneurship. Click the link in the show notes to purchase.
All right, Startup Nation, so I hope you're ready to receive some value today. We got a special guest in the building today. We have Kala Philo of MirrorYourBrillianceOnVideo.com. How's it going, Kala?
It's going awesome, Dominic. Thank you so much for having me.
No worries, no worries. Are you ready to pour some knowledge in the Startup Nation today?
I am on fire ready, yes.
Oh, let's do it. So as always, Startup Nation, this is the Startup Life podcast brought to you by the Binge Podcast Network. So, Kala, first things first, tell us your story about your path to entrepreneurship and tell us a little bit about MirrorYourBrillianceOnVideo.com.
Well, thanks for that. So my path to entrepreneurship began I have always been a big fan of especially female entrepreneurs all across the world.
For sure.
But for a long time, I was what I call kind of an armchair sofa entrepreneur. I worked for myself for a long time, but I didn't have goals around that. And I would sit on the couch and admire, other entrepreneurs that were building bigger businesses and making more impact, to be honest. So about 3 years ago, I turned my life upside down and I sold everything that would fit into my trusty little Honda CR-V with 90,000 miles on it. And I took off to spend some time traveling, but also work online and free up funds and flexibility to up-level my network and try out some different business ideas I had had in the past.
Okay.
And that was about 3 years ago. And in true entrepreneurial fashion, some of that worked out and some of it didn't. So I have pivoted since my first couple of ideas, but that's, again, that's kind of journey, correct?
Mm-hmm.
And so what I've come back to, it's kind of interesting because, we think we want to run off and do different things in life. And then usually it circles us back to kind of what our purpose is, even though we may have tried to reject that earlier. And part of that was I was a marketing video producer for about 15 years. I worked with entrepreneurs and nonprofits on marketing videos for the internet, for the web, pretty much since you could do that.
Okay.
As it became possible. And I thought, okay, I'm not going to do that anymore. And I went off and tried some different things. But in the process of learning a lot about doing an online business, I came back to video once again because it's exploding online and it's very exciting because it's also taking off at the same time. There's a ton of entrepreneurship happening online as well.
Okay.
And that's when I came back to the Mirror Your Brilliance on Video method, which is kind of a compilation of my 15 years of experience as a video producer, but packaged into something really powerful and simple for individuals who are the face of their business to put into place to start to participate in this amazing wave of video that's happening online.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. And Startup Nation, you can go to Kala's website right now, MirrorYourBrillianceOnVideo.com, as we have the link there in the show notes for easy access for you to get to that website. Thank you so much for sharing that. Mm-hmm. So, Kala, I read that you took like an 18-month journey across U.S., Mexico, and Ecuador. Tell us a little bit about that.
Yes, I did. Like I said, I sold or donated everything that wouldn't fit in my car, and I started on Montana. I had gone through some relationship stuff, just kind of some midlife stuff.
Understood.
knew that I was going to be doing things differently, but I wasn't sure what that looked like. So I took about 6 months, no, more like 4 months in Montana in the wintertime, which was actually really beautiful. And I just think I'm part bear because I went there to sort of hibernate and rejuvenate. And then after that, I came out of that experience knowing that I had a ton of stuff I wanted to figure out, what was next. And so I worked online. I did some editing, video editing online, because I'm a really good video editor. And that was something that I could do while I was, anywhere that was an internet connection, right? So I was doing video editing and also doing a lot of networking. I participated in some business accelerators, and at the same time traveling, went to Ecuador, ended up on a 9-hour bus trip at nighttime because I read the ticket wrong. At that time, my Spanish wasn't as good as it is now.
Gotcha.
So, I could have a little video about that. But, I got there and I thought my ticket was for 9 a.m. and actually it was for 9 p.m. And so I ended up taking the nighttime bus across the country of Ecuador, way up in the Andes. Great experience, but, not something I had intended. And I got to Cuenca very early in the morning and nothing was open yet. And I was, in this park that's super high up in the Andes there, in the middle of that city. And it was so strange. I don't know if you've ever had the experience, but it's like I could almost feel the earth rotating because I felt like I was so high up.
Oh, wow. Strange. Okay.
Yeah. But, and maybe it was just, elevation sickness or something.
Got you. For sure.
I think what that has to do with the whole, for your audience, starting anything brand new is scary and you feel like you're in an alien space sometimes, or you don't even know what's going on.
Absolutely.
And what I learned from all of that and from the travel afterwards, that's the moment when I'm supposed to tell you, that I had all this clarity to descend and I knew exactly what I was going to do for the rest of my life. And that is not true at all.
Gotcha.
What happened was I realized, okay, there's a lot of uncertainty and I've invited all of this into my life. There's a ton of uncertainty, but there's a reason I did that. And what I have to do now is just hold space for that uncertainty and not run out there and try to cram stuff in as quickly as possible. Because a lot of that ends up just being more of what you were trying to shed in the past, right? Because you have to make space for new stuff before it can manifest itself, kind of within you. And I think that's in a world where, certainty is rewarded and routine is rewarded. I think as entrepreneurs, especially in the startup phase, which can take much longer than you think.
For sure.
Constantly remember and remind yourself, this is the new normal. Feeling uncertain and feeling like maybe something's missing for a while is normal because that piece is waiting to come to you through this process of holding space for it.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. And I appreciate your transparency as well. When you talk about it was supposed to be this time where you're supposed to say, that's where I found this piece of clarity or whatever the case may be. And that's not the case. And Startup Nation, I think it's important that you understand that sometimes everything isn't going to have that storybook ending, right? I don't think entrepreneurship is supposed to have necessarily, not like the typical storybook ending, but a lot of times in those storybooks, they kind of mesh over or kind of leave out the hard and the grimy parts and the part where you're like, oh, I got it. I don't have it. So I appreciate you sharing that, Kayla, for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. No problem. And I think if you talk to any, successful entrepreneur that's made it or read their stories or hear them online or watch their videos, they all talk about a time when they failed and they
Absolutely.
felt uncertain and unclear. So you're exactly right.
Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. So let me ask you this. So, I saw that you did some work with yellowpages.com and City Search. Tell us about that a little bit.
Yeah, that was kind of where I cut my teeth on filmmaking, to be honest, on film and video. So back at I think it was the mid 90s, there was a startup in the San Francisco area called Turn Here. And what they were trying to do was meet the need in the marketplace for local video, but that national brands were needing to aggregate. So for Yellow Pages is a great example because Yellow Pages is a national brand, but all of the Yellow Pages customers, they have tons of small businesses, right?
Right.
So they needed some granular local video, like kind of, on the ground video, but how was Yellow Pages going to make that happen for their clients, you know,
Right.
in a reasonable way, because Yellow Pages is not a video company, correct?
Right. Correct.
Yeah, so that was Turn Here was the startup, and that was their attempt to aggregate a lot of filmmakers, you know, in regional markets, but to serve these national customers. So what I was one of their first filmmakers, filmed the first batch, and it was really fun. And
Okay.
so what would happen is I would get an email from my producer in Emeryville who had been who's working with Yellow Pages. And they would say, okay, we have, you know, a body shop or a beauty salon or a dentist in your area. Do you want to do their video? And I would say, yes, I do. And it was awesome on the job training, because basically I would go and show up, never having been at the business before. And I'd have about 60 to 90 minutes to complete the shoot. So the first couple of minutes, we're just getting to know the client. And of course, none of these people had ever been on camera before.
Right.
And so it was a fabulous opportunity to learn how to get people comfortable on camera. And I have a marketing background, so I knew the kind of information that I wanted to get from them. So we do their interview, and then based on their interview, you know, it'd be thinking on the fly, okay, I need to get this footage or that footage. And so I was, you know, filmmaker, director, producer, and marketing consultant all at one time.
Gotcha.
I also discovered I was really good at it and I loved it. And so I became one of their preferred filmmakers, and I have a really great testimonial from their former content manager who's now with LinkedIn.
Okay.
At any rate, I excelled at that and I was good at it. And I did that hundreds of times over a few years in Austin, San Antonio, and then Northern California. So that was kind of the way I grew my marketing and video chops, was through that experience.
Awesome. Thank you for sharing that. And I love how that's part of your origin story. How you said that's how you cut your teeth, if you will. I really appreciate that. I love hearing those stories for sure. So let me ask you this, Kayla. Who or what inspires you as an entrepreneur, and why?
Oh my gosh, there's boy, how much time do we have? Well, so I would say that I see entrepreneurship as part of some people's way of just taking their human journey. You know, we're all called to take a journey.
I hear that.
Whether we choose to respond proactively with intention or not is a different story, but the call is always there.
For sure.
And like one author that I came across a few years ago that really helped me with this is Eckhart Tolle. You may have heard of him. The Power of Now. Really made him famous. And then I follow, just going maybe more practically speaking for business purposes, I really enjoy a lot of the business gurus online. You know, Tony Robbins is awesome.
For sure.
Is Janine Blackwell, who is the creator of the 6-Figure Courses. I worked with her for a bit. Right now, I'm working in a program by Selena Sue. She's like this amazing entrepreneur who does a lot of public relations and connecting of people. And then just the online space for female entrepreneurs has been really inspirational for me to observe, and has made me really level up my game just to be a part of it, because
Gotcha.
You may be aware that, you know, Forbes has dubbed this, and some other publications, the age of female entrepreneurship, because
For sure.
of what's happening online, and especially with women of color, which is super inspirational.
For sure.
And so all of those things, you know, come together, I think, just really kind of help keep me, you know, because you used the word grind earlier in reference to startup as well.
Right.
And there is that aspect of it. And that's why I think people say, you know, it has to be more than just, you know, one or two things. It has to be kind of a combination of influences that keep you showing up to this every day. And then the last thing I think I would have to say is that nature really helps me. I make time to get outside every day if I can at all possible, and engage with the natural world. And that's the most inspirational place of all.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. And I'm glad you must have read my notes today. I'm glad you brought up the golden era, or this golden era of entrepreneurship for women, because my next line, a couple of questions are actually going to talk about that a little bit. Right.
Okay.
So one of the things I wanted to ask you on your LinkedIn profile, you talked about the 1984 Super Bowl ad that Apple did. Right. And you said that it was one of probably the greatest commercial of all time, right? And I tend to agree with you as well. And for those of you who are a little younger, Startup Nation, this is from 1984. It's like 35 years old. And so there's this woman, coming through this line, and she throws this like hammer or something, into the screen, and the screen just explodes. And it really kind of signifies a little bit of what you're talking about, like women kind of breaking the status quo and breaking new grounds and stuff like that. But, from a video and marketing standpoint, break down that video for us. Why do you think it's the best ad ever?
Yes. Well, I think that partially personally, just from what I'm working in now, or the fact that, number one, they chose a woman, in 1984. I mean, it wasn't 1964, but still,
right.
So they could have just more easily chosen, a Superman kind of figure, much more expected, but they chose a woman to be the heroine of that. And it also so encapsulated everything that they were trying to communicate about their brand.
Right.
At the time and even today, is just how they're different and how they are, kind of back then anyway, they were more like David fighting against Goliath.
For sure.
And they speak to every single creative out there that feels, I think, often boxed in by, we have to submit and participate to some degree in a wider system, especially in the 80s, like a wider, perhaps corporate system that doesn't necessarily feed all aspects of the creative personality and work style. But Apple was seen as, we're at least with you with that. And we are a way that, you can continue to express that and we'll fight for you. That was what I got from it. We're going to fight for the space for creatives to do their work and not have to submit to being, one of the gray people chanting in the audience at the screen.
For sure. For sure.
And also they screened it during the Super Bowl. I think it was the first, that ad was the one that started the whole Super Bowl ad construct, which now is sort of a known thing. Who's going to
absolutely?
Well, Apple wasn't an advertising company, but once again, they broke broke ground in an area just by being so innovative. It wasn't even like their core competency, which was, advertising. Their core competency was what they were designing the Apple products, but just such an incredible company. And I probably should have mentioned Steve Jobs when you were talking about who's inspired you.
Right.
Just I mean, there are not that many people that have ever lived that have had the kind of influence, that he had, be it
right.
what they produced during his time at Apple. So
for sure, I'm pretty sure Steve Jobs is on everybody's list. It's like it would be hard to find an entrepreneur who Steve Jobs isn't on his list, if not number one.
Well, it's interesting because apparently he wasn't that much fun to work with. So
for sure, that's it's funny how that works.
On a different list for them, but
right, for sure. But
I think that's interesting too. To see how he just was so focused. He didn't even have time to be polite. That's
right.
Pretty extreme focus, and then we can't all go there. I'm not sure, I would want to, but look at how, the impact he had. So you got to balance those things out.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. Mm-hmm. So, Startup Nation, I mentioned that, I was looking on her LinkedIn page. And if you want to follow Kala on LinkedIn, the link is there in the show notes. Sorry for the repetition in the word link. The link is there in the show notes for easy access. So you can follow Kala's content on LinkedIn for sure. Kala, also on LinkedIn, you had a post entitled "Get Your Smalts On: Valuable Social Video Lessons from Hallmark Movies," where you talk about not just the binge watching Hallmark movies, but you also talked about a very powerful video that I actually enjoy as well. It's the "Like a Girl" campaign from Always, right?
Yes.
And so, you say in your post, however, that they kind of missed the mark a little bit, right? How so? And what can marketers learn from that mark that they missed?
Yes, thanks for that question. First of all, I just want to preface it with I admire that campaign. And so this is meant totally in the spirit of constructive criticism and not, nitpicking.
Absolutely. And if I can add to that, as a husband and a father of two daughters, I also like that campaign as well. For sure. Go ahead.
Right. I mean, what they're doing is very empowering and bringing authentic girls to the screen, which lots more of that needs to be happening in an authentic way and showing their strength. But if I had been producer on that shoot, or editor for sure, I would have just made it much, much shorter. The strongest points of it were kind of lost because it went on a little bit too long. And I think if you were to watch it with that kind of lens in mind, you might see that, because there were a couple points where I was like, oh, wow, that really, that's amazing. And I thought it was ending. And then it kind of went on. I'm like, oh, well. And also, just practically speaking, online shorter video is almost always better unless you're in a situation where your audience is showing up with the expectation that they're going to be taught something.
Right.
Or, but if they don't have that expectation, then a shorter video is always better, just pretty much always better.
Gotcha. For sure. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So with all that being said, we said once again that this is kind of a golden era in female entrepreneurship, and I want to know your opinion on what is spurring this surgence, right? Has it been something that's been building for a long time, maybe even since that 1984 Apple ad, or can you point to a singular moment? Because we're starting to see more images of women, and not in a subservient way, but in a more powerful leading way. When we think about the movie Wonder Woman, or even if we think about the movie Black Panther, and how the women in that movie had very strong roles, not very subservient at all, but also as an equal to King T'Challa in the movie itself. So do you think this is something we've been building towards to a certain point, or can you point to a singular moment in your opinion?
I don't think there was a singular moment.
Okay.
That doesn't mean there wasn't, but I don't see it that way.
Okay.
I think that we have been building towards this, and I think that the communication and connection that's available online has been the thing that kind of blew open.
For sure.
The underlying demand. Women have been sitting on their ideas, they've been sitting on their initiative, they've been sitting on a lot of things that, action that I think that, my grandmother could have done exactly what I'm doing now and probably better, but
absolutely
tools. There's a woman who actually really helped with the understanding of the evolution of like dinosaurs on the planet, but all of her teachings were squelched because the male dominated infrastructure at that time, education and teaching infrastructure. They didn't like her for obvious reasons. So it's kind of an odd example, but there's, probably hundreds of those kind of examples where if a woman had the platform that she has access to now, basically a website and video, that, she would be like a household name now. Her name is Mary somebody. I mean, I can't remember it. And I did a short example video about her. So that kind of show you. So I think women have been sitting on that kind of initiative, that kind of drive, that kind of accomplishment for a long time. It's only recently that, the example of women of color, for example, I mean, they're starting businesses at a rate that blows away everybody else.
Absolutely.
First, and immigrant women second. I think that's super exciting. And I think the reason is because they have been able to find each other and find the resources that they need online in a way, and the accountability and support online in a way that they haven't been as able to access in the cubicle world, as easily, right?
For sure.
And it's interesting because we see this dichotomy. I spend so much time in the entrepreneur space online, and it really kind of keeps me, positive and upbeat. And then I go and I look outside of that world and I see what's happening kind of, in government and maybe some more traditional environments. And it's like, wow, this is my opinion, but they don't get it. Right. Things are moving ahead so much faster. And I guess this has always been the case. Probably some of your listeners know way more about this than I do, but the government and industry sort of lags what's happening in entrepreneurship, I suppose, or in what's being created.
Oh, absolutely.
And the internet's like a magnifying glass for that. Does that make sense?
No, that makes complete sense. You're absolutely right. Government always on behind on everything. So that makes complete sense to me. But go ahead. I'm sorry.
No. That was kind of the point I wanted to make, because I think that's why we're seeing this explosion of female entrepreneurship, is because we now have access to each other and to tools and accountability and an wide open space to participate. And it's one of the reasons that I'm so passionate about getting more women on video. Not that every single woman has to have, a YouTube channel, but I think pretty close, to be honest, because if you want to make a broader impact with your work, and you don't have to be, it doesn't mean everybody has to do that. Like some people are very effective and very happy and content and adding lots of value within their local sphere. And there's nothing wrong with that. But if you want to take it to the next level and have a broader impact, then I think video is necessary. Like it's the next power move for your mission or your business.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. And I would like to also add, Kayla, that, you also, there's the way to now you can control your own narrative as opposed to somebody else controlling your narrative for you. So I think video allows you to do that, and that access to, the web and online, the internet, or whatever the case may be, allows you to kind of do that as well. So thank you for sharing that. I appreciate it.
Oh, no, thank you. I love the way you put that. And I'm going to totally use that, control your own narrative, because that's exactly that's the power of it. Exactly.
Right. For sure. So I want to ask you about farm shorts. I came across these videos, some work he was doing for, I think, Go Local in Sonoma County out in California.
Well, the Farm Shorts was a project that I bootstrapped and produced and shot or filmed or edited most of. I did hire an amazing videographer, James Simmons.
For sure.
Still out there, and then Go Local actually approached me about using the content, and I said, well, of course.
Gotcha. Okay.
Therefore, but yeah, you're right. That was a really fun project.
For sure. And I guess I just wanted to know what inspired Farm Shorts for you. Like, what made you do that? Because I think it was very interesting to highlight, local farms in the area to kind of show where our, food and stuff comes from, how it's sourced and everything like that. So what inspired you to do that project?
Yeah, thanks for that question, because it's still one of the favorite things I've ever done.
Okay.
I had moved out to Northern California and a lot because I knew I wanted to be doing more work around sustainability and this, doing video still, but like helping the sustainability sector. And a big piece of that is our food system.
Gotcha.
And so I started meeting, a lot of local businesses and then through that local farmers. And they had these amazing properties, amazing, characters, amazing personalities, amazing mission. And they had no video at all, and they had no budget for it either.
Gotcha.
And so I thought, well, what's, the best way that I can help the region that I'm in now? And was to do a pilot project where we did some crowdfunding around raising a critical mass or raising enough money to do a critical mass of videos and not just one or two.
Gotcha.
One of the big things, is one video is better than none, but it's not nearly as good as 5 or 6 or 7. And we could get into that later. But
right.
if you want to make an impact, you need more than just a couple. And I knew and I knew the stories were out there. So the farmers were my inspiration. The changes, the challenges that they have. And, you talk about true entrepreneurs.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
I was born in Iowa, and I had farmers in my family. I didn't grow up in Iowa, but I'm got that Midwest thing.
Gotcha.
And so went back, Christmases and during summer. So I was familiar with the agricultural, scene in Iowa from that experience. But at any rate, in Northern California, there was a lot going on trying to bring things back to sustainable organic and humane raising of the animals and all these. And the visuals were just, incredible. So it was killing me that nobody was doing good video around that. So I decided, okay, I cannot sit here and wait for farmers to come to me with a marketing budget because it's not going to happen. So that's why I came up with the project. So the first version of Farm Shorts was well received, and it's still online on the YouTube channel of my old company name, which is Spacious Economy.
Gotcha.
At any rate, if you Google Farm Shorts videos, you can find them. But they were well done and well received. The unfortunate thing is I didn't have, for a variety of reasons, not just business, but personal as well, I didn't have the capacity at that time to figure out how to turn it into a business. Like
Gotcha.
A sustainable project that I could make money from, because everybody loved the videos, but not like who, the farmers couldn't pay for them, and the people that were viewing them loved them, but they didn't really, I couldn't crowdfund forever.
Right.
So I did have a couple sponsor meetings, but it didn't go anywhere. And then some other things were happening for me. So I finally had to just let it go, but it was an awesome project.
Gotcha. Well, seeing as that it was one of your favorite projects, if you could do it over again today, what would you do differently to try to kind of scale it a little bit? What would you do differently?
That's a great question. I would have a lot more meetings with potential stakeholders and sponsors before, I would have shot just a couple, maybe one or two as an example, and use those to have a bunch more meetings around connecting support for the idea, corporate support, or I did have a meeting with the tourism people in California, and that was a pretty good meeting, but they had ideas about doing some other things. So at any rate, I would work on the connections and the networking more than create the whole video project.
Gotcha.
But I was a video producer. That was my lens. That's what I was coming from at that point. Now I have a lot more experience around the other pieces of building, a business. And
Kayla brings up an interesting point when she talks about, the venture of making those videos for the farmers and stuff like that, but not necessarily turning it into a business itself. Look, we all have great ideas, Startup Nation, but believe it or not all of them are really meant to be a full-fledged business. Sometimes whatever your idea is a really good product, and that's fine. It's still a part of the entrepreneurial mindset, the entrepreneurial experience. It's just the path is just a little different. So if you find yourself with an idea and you're not really sure if it's a business idea or is better suited as just a product, get with the mentor, get with somebody, some business agency like a SCORE that can really help you vet that idea even more to help you make that determination. And look, you can still be just as successful, just as lucrative either way, but sometimes we find ourselves in a situation to where we want to force that square peg in a circular hole, and it doesn't always work out that way. So when you think about your idea and you think about, how you want to move forward on your path to entrepreneur, think about if your idea is best suited as a product as opposed to a business.
Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I did, it seemed like you really enjoyed it, and I can hear it in your voice that you enjoyed it. So I just wanted to ask that question, kind of poke a little bit.
Yeah.
For sure. So you mentioned earlier about, how entrepreneurs, are very open to, sharing not just the triumphs, but the struggles as well. So Kayla, I want to know, what did you learn from your biggest failure?
Yeah, I learned that I was focusing too much on production.
Okay.
Because that's my happy place. My comfort zone traditionally has been producing content, right? Video, editing. I did websites. I write really well. I do all that side really well. And so my first idea, which was called the Dream Test Drive, and it's still a great idea, but but for some reasons that I see really clearly now, I did pivot and shifted. But I spent, way too much time creating a course. And it's a gorgeous course, handcrafted with lots of video and graphics. But I should have been spending that time finding people to take the course and basically, sales and marketing, right?
Right.
Sales, actually. So that's been the lesson from my biggest failure, is to not spend so much time, getting it just perfect, the whole, before you test the idea. And ironically, that was the whole premise of the Dream Biz Test Drive was, teaching women to prototype their ideas. And I guess it did work out because I prototyped it. I went a little too far, but I knew enough by the time I was, getting in the middle of it. I knew, okay, this is time for me to pivot. I'm learning from my own process here. So that's
right.
Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that for sure. So, Kayla, entrepreneurs consider themselves lifelong learners. They're always engaged in professional development, whatever that looks like, podcasts, reading books, reading articles, whatever the case may be. So what does professional development mean to you, and what are you learning now?
Great question. You have such good questions.
I try my best.
You think you add a lot of value to your audience. So for me, what has been really fun the last 3 years is there are some very smart people who are teaching things about entrepreneurship online. They've succeeded, and now they're teaching others. So I would say, professional development is definitely something I have invested in and continue to do so, maybe, too much, because you can only process so much at one time and then be a little overwhelmed. So I have kind of overdone it a couple times. But I mentioned I'm in Selena Sue's. She has a program called Get Known, Get Clients. And it's a great kind of like boot camp around messaging and sales and connecting with others and building a referral network. And I love the way that she teaches. She's so down to earth, and because I think she's an introvert, and I'm an introvert as well. And so I really enjoy a coach who is just always so on, but that's just kind of more calm in their approach.
Gotcha.
And, because the opposite of the spectrum is somebody like Tony Robbins, who's like a huge extrovert, and I enjoy, like listening to his stuff, but he's too much for me after a while. I'm like,
Fair enough.
At any rate, that's somebody that I would say professional development, and that's the kind of stuff I'm interested in right now. Yeah.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. I know exactly what you mean, because a lot of times, and don't get me wrong, Tony Robbins, Les Brown, Eric Thomas, they are amazing, right? Mm-hmm. But sometimes that rah-rah is like, it becomes a little bit overwhelming. Like, look, I just need the nuts and bolts of what I need to know. Like, I'm inspired. Like, I got it. But now I'm ready to have some tangible tools. And that's honestly why we started the Startup Life podcast, to kind of give those tangible tools, because we thought that was a kind of a voice. So I appreciate you saying that for sure.
Yeah, absolutely. And I definitely think there is an ongoing market and need for what you are doing, which is producing content that people can actually take away immediately, valuable nuggets. I mean, we all need to be inspired, of course, but after a while, it just like feels like you're being yelled at. And
absolutely. No, you're absolutely right. I agree with you 100%.
Things that are really going to move the needle in your business are those nuggets that you take away. And Darren Hardy actually is somebody else that I follow.
Okay.
And he has something called Darren Daily. And I mean, I don't obviously get paid to talk, promote any of these people.
For sure. No, I understand.
Help me, Darren Daily. He has a daily, he's a great example of the power of video, because he was the the publisher of Success Magazine for many years. He looked at what was happening online, and he himself didn't really have that much of an online presence. So he started with video. He dove in, and in his typical style, he batch produced a few hundred videos, started daily video email, like you sign up for his email and then you get a daily video from him in your inbox, and it's just a story around success mentorship. And now he's got 200-something thousand followers on YouTube, and he's just kind of, but now he had a good list to start with,
for sure,
but he leveraged that in the fastest way possible, which is through video. So, and his teachings are really good too.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So, last question before we go to break. So as we talked earlier before our session, I did do a little bit of social media stalking, if you will. And so I did come across your Facebook live stream where you was talking to your audience about radiating positivity and controlling what you can control, right? So what was your motivation behind that video, and what are you hoping people got from it?
That's interesting, because I don't go live on my personal Facebook that often, but I'm feeling kind of drawn to do so. And I think it was just because I'm juggling, like a lot of entrepreneurs and people in startup mode, a lot of uncertainty right now, and it's ongoing. But I woke up and I was feeling actually pretty positive and kind of lighthearted. And I thought I just want to express why I am able to maintain my positivity, even when there's not lots of certainty in my life. And then I know I actually live in Mexico right now. I live in Mexico for a year. My partner's Mexican, and I moved here I had a lifelong dream of living in Mexico. And then when I decided to start my work on a startup, I knew I was going to need to not live in Northern California. because it's very expensive there. And so I lived most of the time in Mexico for several reasons, but part of that was to increase my my runway and decrease my burn rate. So anyway, that's the backdrop to me being I'm not in the US right now is what I was trying to say.
Okay.
But I know that obviously my family and my friends, so tons of them live there in the US, and I know that they are often discouraged by what's going on there. And I thought I just want to share that one way that works for me to deal with that is, we've all heard probably about, the level of like our vibration. And that always sounds kind of like woo-woo, like, what does that mean? I'm not vibrating. I'm just sitting here on my chair, right?
Gotcha.
But it's getting at this idea that we are all part of a, massive energy field.
I hear that.
Dr. Spock talked about being pure energy. And
what's wrong with that?
Yeah, and there is some, physics to it that we feel like we're these physical selves that are separate from the external world, but really it's not that we're separate. It's just we have a different levels of connection.
I hear that.
My daughter actually sent me a Soul Sunday session from Oprah where she's talking. I think it's Michael Beckwith is his name, and he's talking about how it's not just our vibration level, but it's like, what are you radiating? And I really liked that way of interpreting, because not everybody can relate to a vibration level. What am I personally vibration level is a high or low, but we can relate to how we are expressing ourselves in terms of like, what energy do we radiate out there? And the point being that when you're radiating a certain energy or a certain emotion, you're going to attract that to yourself. And it's almost kind of, I just try it and observe, because I do notice like when I'm feeling low or more negative, I tend to attract those sorts of reactions from people like in the store or, even driving in my car. But when I'm feeling more positive and, working at like giving that out to other people because I want them to have that too, it's like the whole world changes, and it does in a sense. And that's how we change and shape our own reality. That's where that concept of you do create your own reality comes from, is we have so much control over what comes into our psyche and into our lives, but we have to guard that space as if, we're guarding what our kids watch, right?
Right. Absolutely.
Yeah. Because the more, like, if you're watching and consuming lots of negative content, to quote, stay informed, then that negative content's going to influence you. So I'm not saying don't stay informed, but I'm just saying don't spend too much time with negative content that is about stuff that you cannot directly influence. Because
Absolutely.
There is so much you can directly influence in your life once you start to think of it in that way, that you're not going to have time to worry about the other. And that's what we're here to do, create the influence that we can in our own sphere, and then let others and help others who maybe they're called to work on a problem that you care about, but you don't necessarily, have the time or bandwidth or expertise to solve that problem. Well, you can support somebody else who is, but you still have to be focusing on what you're here to do. And,
for sure.
Yeah. And again, kind of goes back to why I do what I do. Video is an amazing way, whether you're in a business or just personally or in a mission-based organization, it's an amazing way to expand your influence.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. That was powerful. Because, you talk about, you want to stay informed, but you don't want to really soak yourself in the negativity, right? Get what you need, get out, right? And so I appreciate you sharing that, because, as you said, there is a lot of negativity going on. And so it's important to remember, like you said, control what you can control within your sphere of influence, as you say. And then I think, you can radiate that positivity, even if it's in just your world and your sphere of influence. But I think that has a positive effect, not only on you, but the people around you. So I appreciate you sharing that. That was powerful, Kayla. I appreciate that for sure.
Well, yeah, no worries. And just like one last thing with that too, one way to reframe it too is, don't let people steal your thunder.
Snap that up right there. That's important.
Yeah. Don't let them steal your fire. Because that's what's happening when you feel your emotion level rising and you're getting angry about something, or, feeling threatened about something that you're reading that's going on, maybe it's in government or somebody else's opinion, I would say that's a sign right there. Just go, ooh, I'm going to take a detour and go the other way, because this rising negative emotion that I have, what is that really going to, what difference is that going to make? It's probably not going to make any difference other than stealing from you time that you could have been spending on something you can make a difference on.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Thank you for sharing that. Really quick follow-up, because you mentioned your partner, Sergio. How has he supported you in this process in building your company?
Well, that's a pretty funny question.
Okay.
Yeah. Well, I'm just laughing because it's so unconventional. So he, I think, he directly supports me, and he's super sweet, and I don't want to stereotype, but here I go. He's like what you would think of as a typical Latino or Mexican man. He's very caring, very sweet, very protective, super warm, and, expressive. And he's an extrovert, and I'm not. So he helps me access people and situations that I wouldn't normally be able to, not only because he's Mexican, but also because he'll talk to anybody about anything. And he's the most self-actualized person I've ever met.
Gotcha.
So he wakes up positive. He's not moody at all. He's just a very, lighthearted presence in my life. And he thinks I'm the best thing since tortillas. So that's nice too, with
Gotcha.
With my ego, it's really sweet to have somebody in your life who just thinks you're like amazing no matter what you do. And so I really appreciate that about him. And I do have to say, I think that if you're in the midst of the startup process and your partner's hanging in there with you, then maybe just take a minute to thank them or send them flowers or take them to dinner or, do something really nice, because I've thought about that before, like sitting on the other side of, like, if I was me, sitting on the other side of what I'm doing, it's challenging because it kind of takes over your life. And I've had to fine tune, my life pretty much to support this effort, because I want to make it work. And sometimes that means that he has to sacrifice as well. So I don't know.
Gotcha.
Have you had other guests speak to that point before?
Every once in a while. And so I try to ask that question because I think that part is important, right? Because I think it speaks to the notion that a lot of people like to think like, oh yeah, I built this company by myself, bootstrapped it by myself, right? When in actuality, it was kind of a team effort, right? And at the very least, if you have a significant other, at the very least, they were there to support you and to pick you up when you felt down about yourself. And so when you talked about, Sergio, just saying nice stuff about you and stuff like that, I think that's important to share. And then on the flip side, like you said, it's also too important to say, thank you for your support. Thank you for being there with me. Thank you for my gripe sessions. Thank you for just hearing me out from time to time. So we get that response from people every once in a while, but but it's not too often, but I wanted to hear your response to it for sure.
Oh yeah. Well, thank you. Yeah, definitely. He's I guess it's that emotional support. He definitely does provide that for sure. Mm-hmm. For sure. So we're going to go ahead and take a quick break. How you like being on the Startup Life so far, Kayla? It's amazing. You're doing such a great job. Thank you.
Thank you so much.
All right, Startup Nation. So I hope you're getting great value from Kayla's content, but as always, we got to pay a few bills. Once again, my name is Dominic Lawson. You're listening to the Startup Life Podcast, and it's powered by the Binge Podcast Network. Hey business owner, The Startup Life reach is growing. Wouldn't you like your business to grow with it? Reach out to us to advertise on The Startup Life. You can reach us at 901-857-4818, or you can email me at dominic@askalsolutions.com. I mean, don't get me wrong, like this is a great music to have break on, but wouldn't this break sound a lot better with the same music but your business being advertised on it? Need more content from The Startup Life, you say? You can now sign up for the Startup Life All Access Pass on the Binge Podcast Network's Patreon page. There is exclusive content written by yours truly, video content where I share even more of my business philosophies, and whatever crazy content I can think of out of that crazy head of mine. And at only $5 a month, yeah, $5 a month, this is more content for you, Startup Nation, to really get ahead of your competition. So instead of upsizing that meal at your favorite fast food joint, you can now invest in yourself on your path to entrepreneurship. Click the link in the show notes to sign up.
All right, Startup Nation. So let's continue. So Kayla, if you would, tell us about, Mirror Your Brilliance on video.com. And you have like a email list that people can sign up for where you kind of give like a weekly content or some weekly value. Let Startup Nation know what they'll get from this value when they sign up on that with your email list.
Okay, well, thanks for that question.
Mm-hmm.
The email list is in conjunction with something new we're starting for the first 6 months of 2019. I challenged myself to put out basically a video a day.
Okay.
Or some content about a video. So I did a batch production of about 50 short videos in December. Got those all edited, and they're not all live yet on the YouTube channel, but they're all like waiting in the wings. And then
Gotcha.
So the way that speaks to the email list is, so rather than emailing people every single day, which I think is a bit much depending on what you're up to. So on Mondays, I send out a curated list of an email or a video a day. And every day has a different theme. So like Monday is Mindset Monday, because my audience is a lot of women, and a lot of women have issues around being seen on video and camera anxiety. And
Absolutely.
Mindset Monday. Tuesday is a how-to tip, just basically, how do you do this, just functionally speaking. Wednesday is some inspiration around video and how cool it is. And then Thursday is something fun that I hope to expand on in the last 6 months of the year, which is called Chief Video Officer Thursday, where I try to scope out and talk about something strategy related around video, or give examples or hold other people up that are doing amazing things with video. And then Friday is what I call Extreme Makeover and Kudos video, where I'll take a video and I'll just say, now, if I were the video producer on this shoot, this is what I would have done differently, but this is what they did really well. It's kind of like that always video we talked about.
Right.
So it's a variety of different curated videos, many of which I've created, that speak to that. If you kind of keep up with it over now, not everyone's going to watch every single video every day. Right. For a month or a couple months, you can check in with whatever day appeals to you the most, or whatever theme. Then you get a really good grounding in the, and the thing that differentiates my videos from quite a bit of other kind of video business oriented content out there is they're short. Like almost every single one's under 2 minutes. And so they're digestible nuggets. Then so that's the video, the email list itself. Now, the other thing that I offer is like 4 different entry points to get onto the email list, depending upon what is your most urgent specific question around for your business. And there's kind of what I call a video quiz on the homepage, where there's 4 different boxes, and you can choose one, and it will ask you for your information, and then it will send you some specific videos that address exactly that question that you have. So that's accessible as well.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. And Startup Nation, you can sign up for that email list. If you go to mirroryourbrillianceonvideo.com, you can sign up for that email list. And once again, the website link is in the show notes for easy access. So Kayla, I see that you have a couple of different delivery systems for if somebody wants to, pay you for your services, right? I know you have the online course, and then you have like the one-on-one with clients. So, explain the type of value between the two, if you would, so Startup Nation can make an informed choice.
Yeah, thank you. Well, the Mirror Your Brilliance on Video method is what I call the silver level self-paced.
Gotcha.
And that's a program that you can engage with and do it at your own pace. I suggest 3 months, but people take up to 6 months to do their videos, and some people who are really fired up do them within 6 weeks. So it just depends on what you're trying to accomplish and when.
Right.
But that program is more self-paced. It's also the one that I try to keep affordable, because I really want to get this information in the hands of as many entrepreneurs as possible. And it's an A to Z program that teaches you how to set up and do smartphone video. And it also teaches you how to keep it all organized, how to interact with an editor, or if you do your own editing, we have a proprietary method for doing your takes that will save you hours in the edit or your editor. So anyway, it's a whole package based on my experience of knowing like that video production is a system, and different kinds of, you can do infinitely different kinds of video, but the system piece remains the same. So that's what the Mirror Your Brilliance method teaches, is the system for creating lots of smartphone video. Now, why do I emphasize smartphone? It's because smartphones take amazing video, and you can set up your own mini studio, and you can be like Oprah and be on set and do your videos, and you can start to create the critical mass of videos that I believe most coaches and consultants and experts and people who are the face of their business are going to start to need to be creating to really stay competitive and stay ahead of the game. So it's a way of systemizing all that and keeping it organized, and it becomes a valuable asset in your business. So that's the basic course. Now, the 2 levels of coaching packages that I offer are the gold and the platinum level. And those are just kind of depend on how much personalized attention that you need.
Gotcha.
For example, in the gold level, we'll do one of my favorite things is to do a virtual location scout, where people take me around their home or office with their phone or iPad and show me literally where they're at, and where the windows are, where is the light, and I help them find a place to set up their mini studio. That I is super valuable to them. It's something, a second nature to me, that I love doing. And I had one client, and she said, I don't have anywhere to set up. And I said, well, just walk me around your house on your iPad for a little bit. And we found like 3 places she could set up. So,
wow.
Yeah. So there's almost always a shot is my motto. And so that's just one of the examples of like the gold level set with some personalized attention. In the platinum level, we actually supervise the edit. And that's really for people that are ready to establish like a business video presence, what I call. So to me, there's a difference between just getting started with a couple videos, which everybody should do anyway. You got to start somewhere, but then really starting to think strategically about what is my business video presence, because it's an extension of my brand and who I am and what I offer. So that's what the kind of the higher level is. And I have limited openings of those because obviously that takes more of my time.
Gotcha. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. So, you talked about helping people who are consultants or teachers or whatever the case may be with setting up video and stuff like that. And so that's one of those service-based businesses, right? And so for people who have a service-based business, one of the biggest struggles they have is trying to determine pricing for those services, right? Mm-hmm. So if you would help Startup Nation and share with them how they can set the prices for their service. Now, obviously, it ranges from industry, but I guess what I'm more so asking, how do you set prices with the point where you feel comfortable at that being the price? Because a lot of times people are like, oh, I don't want to be too high and I don't want to be too low. So help us find that sweet spot a little bit, Kayla.
Yeah, that's a great question. And it's something I've had to work on, to be honest. And, I think most entrepreneurs have to think about this, and especially new ones. And then I do know, because it's my audience, that women struggle sometimes with, pricing, because these businesses become like extensions of ourselves. And, it feels personal. Well, first of all, we have to take the personal out of it. And we have to get really clear on what we do differently than everybody else out there that adds value. How does our unique difference make a difference for our client and add value? We have to be clear about communicating that. And then I also saw something recently from a coach called Carolyn Saldo.
Okay.
And she said, think about the value, like what are you saving? Like when you help your client with this issue or this problem or this process, what are you saving them from having to do? Like how many hours would they have to spend to do X, Y, and Z without you, versus if you come in with your system or your process or, whatever your unique talent is, you help them succeed in an area that they were struggling before. And usually that means saving them quite a bit of time or enabling them to offer more value to their clients. So that's how you start to look at how do you add value, because I can look at, like with my packages, right? I can look at, okay, this is what my hourly rate is. This is how long it takes me. And then there's a sum at the bottom, right?
Right.
But you have to look at, well, yeah, but that's how long it takes me. And I know how to do this. I'm saving my clients double that amount of time. And their hourly rate is X, Y, Z. So
right.
It's a balance. Does that make sense?
No, that makes complete sense. You're absolutely right. That balance that you speak of, for sure.
Yeah.
For sure. Thank you for sharing that. And so really quickly, Kala, because you talked about how you was helping a client and how like I had nowhere to shoot in my house, but you found 3 spots. And we talk about the ease of, using smartphone cameras to kind of, and how that technology has greatly advanced from just a few years ago to kind of shoot those videos and stuff like that. So with that being said, with, and the ease and the affordability of like lighting and stuff like that, then you can go to Amazon and get a whole lighting equipment for under $100 now, right? Mm-hmm. But explain to entrepreneurs that if you don't use video, especially in a 21st century marketplace and economy where everybody's competing for everybody's attention, if you don't use video, why will you fall behind your competition?
I love this question. It is because, if your business depends upon engaging, influencing an online audience, and part of that, influencing them to the degree where they want to work with you. So that's part of the know, like, and trust factor, correct? And they have to know and like you and trust you before they will work with you.
Right. And
the fastest way to short circuit that process, or to shorten it, I guess I should say, the sales journey that your customer goes through, or your prospect goes through to become a customer, you can shorten that so much with video because they're actually seeing you. And as humans, and I have, of course, a short video about this, but as humans, we are drawn to motion and images and then motion, and you add sound to that and we become mesmerized. And then you add a person's face to that. And, you think about a baby that's looking at you, and where are they staring? They're not really staring usually at your ears or your chin. They're looking at your eyes. They're trying to figure out, is this somebody I can trust or not? And so this starts really, really way back down, deep in our childhood. And so if you start to create videos where you are showing up, professionally, but as your authentic self, and being clear about what you do differently that's valuable, you are going to attract the right kind of people to you, because they're going to see you and resonate with that, and they're going to want to know more, much more so than if they read a blog post. Because number one, it's harder to get them to read a blog post, and it's much easier to get them to watch a video for the reasons I just said. We're just more engaged with video. For sure. So you can shorten the know, like, and trust factor. I mean, in my process, people have, who are interested in working with me, they have spent probably 5, maybe 10 minutes on video with me, like having seen my videos before we even have our first conversation. Now, that's pretty helpful. Right. The sales process, because once we have the conversation, they already know if they like or trust me. If they didn't, we wouldn't be having the conversation. Right, for sure. So it's also, and some people are worried about this, like, what if somebody doesn't like my video? Well, that's actually a good thing, because we don't have time to spend anymore with people who aren't like a good fit for what we have to offer. And that's why, again, it's so important to be authentic, because you don't want to attract clients that, don't really fit what you have to offer, and vice versa, by, trying to sort of be something that you're not on camera. Does that make sense? No, that makes complete sense. You're absolutely right, for sure. Yeah. So video is a great filter. It's like the best sales assistant out there.
It absolutely is.
Yeah, it's a great filter. It helps speed up the know, like, and trust piece. And that's why I believe it's going to be harder to stay competitive if you're not doing video. And even, I mean, I have people who have told me, well, I get all my clients locally. You know, I just get me in the room and I'm fine. I'm like, yeah, I understand that. And that's a great advantage for now. But I don't think that's going to serve, you know, people well going forward, because the people that they're meeting, you know, they have an internet connection, and they're starting to look not just at their local chamber event, but they're also looking online, and there's, you know, using coaching programs online now. So the good and the bad news is the competition has expanded way beyond your local hometown. It's like, it's out there.
Absolutely. You're speaking gold there, Kayla. You're absolutely right. For sure. For sure. I saw that you posted a video of a young woman smiling in the grass or whatever, and the camera zooms out all the way out into space, right? Mm-hmm. And then I saw that you were in Montana recently, I believe, looking at the Mars lander on the video, wherever the case may be. And I saw, and you've already mentioned earlier that you're maybe a bit of a Trekkie when you mentioned Spock. So I guess I wanted to know, you know, do you clearly have this fascination with space and stuff like that? Where does that come from? Have you always been like that?
No, I haven't.
Okay.
And I can't say it's like a super, you know, scientific thing that I know much about space.
Okay.
I'm not like super well read in that area, but what has sparked my fascination around it, and I guess I kind of curiously keep coming back to it, is I did read something a few years ago that said, you know, the spaciousness of the universe is present within us. It's just at a smaller scale.
I hear that.
So like the space between, you know, the atoms or the protons and stuff, you know, that make like inside our bodies.
Right.
Spaciousness is present. It's just at a much, much, much smaller scale. And that blew me away, because I'm thinking then it just helped me see how relative, literally, you know, all of this. And so I really like those, like the video that I shared online was The Power of 10. When they start, you know, there's a woman laying on the grass in the park, and they go 10 meters out from her, and they stop and they go 10 meters out and then 10 meters out, or no, it's 10, and then 10 times 10 is 100. Anyway, it's exponential. And it goes all the way out to as far as they know of the border of the universe.
Right.
And it's, I don't know, you know, sometimes when you're having a bad day and something, you know, somebody cuts you off in the grocery line or whatever, and then you just, you know, it didn't really matter.
Right. In the grand scheme of it all, right?
Right. And also just think about the fact that, you know, a person is even here on the earth. The chances of you being born are, you know, like 1 in a billion as well. It's
absolutely.
Every single person is like this incredible miracle. And then we're operating on this tiny, tiny little planet in the midst of this huge universe. And obviously I can't even get my head around it, but it helps me to stay more grounded, just to know that all that spaciousness is out there. And really, you know, in the end, if I continue to check in with myself and just serve, you know, others more and more and more, then things are going to be okay.
Got you. Thank you for sharing that. I appreciate that. I also saw that ski season started recently. And so it seems like a nice hobby that you have. How long have you been doing it, and what made you take that hobby up?
Well, I actually, it's kind of like a renewed love affair. So I skied a little bit when I was younger. As a senior in high school, I went on a trip, and then I skied a little bit in college. And
was this like competitively or just recreational?
No.
No. Okay.
Yeah, definitely bunny slopes over here.
Gotcha. Okay.
But I really liked it, but it was expensive, and then, you know, kind of life happened. And then when I went to Montana 3 years ago, I thought, you know, I'm going to do this again. I'm going to go skiing again. And I had decent muscle memory around it. And also, you know, I am a big believer in trying to stay in shape, as, you know, I'm in my mid 50s, and I work, you know, staying in shape is as much a priority as my business. Like, it's on my calendar, because I realize if I don't take care of, you know, this body, it's the only one I got.
Absolutely. No, you're right. For sure.
You know, staying healthy helps me do so many other things. So being able to ski is kind of my big symbol for that. And it's also a symbol for what I want to keep creating with my lifestyle, which is the ability to, maybe I would love to live for a few months in an area where I could ski, several times a week instead of just having to rent a condo and a ski package for a week. I'd like to be able to incorporate that into my lifestyle while I still can, and just kind of stay active in that way. And skiing is just being on the mountain is amazing. There's an energy in the mountains that is very grounding, and I find it really comforting.
I hear that. Thank you for sharing that. Mm-hmm. So, Caleb, I believe all entrepreneurs have a superpower. What's yours and why?
My superpower is, I would say being really flexible.
Okay.
Yeah, I invite a lot of change into my life, and I'm pretty good at weathering the consequences of that. And I think I'm not convinced for sure because I haven't bounced this off anybody else. So maybe you can tell me, but I think I have a little higher capacity for risk.
Oh yeah, for sure. Because no, go ahead. I'm sorry.
No, I was just gonna say, and it's weird feeling because it's strange to, walk around sometimes like feeling really, really scared, but doing it anyway, like for days at a time.
Got you.
So I think maybe the fact that I'm able to do that is part of what makes me different.
No, I actually agree with you. And I get what you're saying because when I was, preparing for, our session today, I saw that, you started, quite a few ventures or whatever the case may be. Right. And we talked about, farm shorts and stuff like that. And so I guess what I'm curious, and this is something that I kind of struggle with myself, right? That high tolerance for risk or whatever the case may be. It's like, I'll get a lot of success or I'll get some type of modicum of success. And then I'll feel like I can do anything. And then I sometimes feel like I take maybe unnecessary risk. Right. And so I have to remind myself like, Dominic, you're not Superman, kiddo. You maybe hold off on this one. Do you ever struggle with that? Or maybe that's just a Dominic thing.
No, and that's interesting because it's something that it's almost like the more you step out there, you get maybe a little giddy or something. I think
it's true. It's so true. No, you're absolutely right. I agree with you. Yes.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I'm not a counselor, but here's maybe a possible. There's two things. So number one, there's an adrenaline rush there, and we like that serotonin, we like that adrenaline, and it's maybe a little bit like a gambling mindset.
Absolutely.
So time in Vegas.
No, you're right about that for sure.
Yeah, but then the other thing is, I need something that's really, gonna get my attention and focus me, because I have, and probably you do too, like an idea every hour of something.
Absolutely.
And I can, and the more like the current idea is requiring me to focus, the more these other things kind of knock at the door.
Right.
And that you saw sort of the evidence of that the last couple of years where I was trying a few different things and thinking, I can actually keep two things going or three. Well, in reality, for my goals and the impact I want to make, that's not true. I had to focus completely in on, and I want to, now, because this, the Mirror Your Brilliance on video has become, the most interesting thing I'm working on, in my opinion, right now. So I let go of a lot of other things to make more progress on this. But having said that, I think that part of kind of piling on the risk, it is a way of, requiring ourselves like, okay, well, I'm going to make that investment in that program, or I'm going to take that little trip, but that means I got to make it up pretty soon, or there's going to be issues with, Uncle Visa,
gotcha.
my MasterCard or whatever. So maybe that's part of it, is just that taking on that risk is a way of forcing ourselves to focus it in a way that perhaps just, putting things on the calendar doesn't. Does that make sense? No,
that makes complete sense. And the check is in the mail for that therapy session. I appreciate that for sure.
Okay.
For sure.
Yeah, so, anytime.
Gotcha. So, Kayla, I just want to say thank you so much for coming on the show once again. This is the Startup Life Podcast, brought to you by the Binge Podcast Network. Last question. So there's an entrepreneur out there in Startup Nation, and they're afraid to start. They're just afraid to just kind of jump off that cliff and start their path to entrepreneurship? Talk to Startup Nation and let them know why they should take the leap.
Because the desire to do so is never going to go away.
I hear
and
that.
if you don't take some action towards it, it's going to bug you, and it could possibly come out in a different way later on that is not nearly as pleasant.
Ooh.
So because you're being called to create something that you can only uniquely create. And that's, and there's a big, long, journey in between that call and actually having that thing manifest. And you may not even know what the final version of it really and truly does look like, but anybody can take baby steps. And sometimes it takes just as much courage to take a baby step as it does, to take a second mortgage on your house to finance something, because it just depends upon the support network that you have and your starting point. But I would say there's so much information online that structure your questions around what's coming up for you immediately in the moment and not so much in the future, and just start to get those questions answered. And if you do that in a disciplined way, then you'll make progress without drowning.
You'll make progress without drowning. Thank you so much, Kayla. And that's going to wrap up our session of the Startup Life. Did you enjoy being on the show, Kayla?
I loved it. Thank you so much for all that you do and for all your great questions. Really good. Thanks.
No worries. Thank you so much. All right, Startup Nation.
So here's my final take. Kayla understands that video is power, right? Because when you have that video content for your business or for your idea, it really tells the story of your brand or the product or the service that you're trying to sell. And honestly, Startup Nation, Kayla understands that that's what your audience is looking for. They want to know not just if your product or service is going to best suit me, they want to know why that product or service is best suited for me to use to speak to those conveniences, to those benefit words that we talked about. Saves me money, saves me time, or whatever the case may be. And Kayla understands that, which is why I think her business is very vital, and she is very much so somebody to learn from when it comes to making video for your business. If you want to let us know what you think about the show, have an idea for a show topic, or like to advertise on our show, please send us a message on the Startup Life Podcast Facebook page. And while you are there, like and follow our page as well. It's a way for us to engage with you, Startup Nation, and really grow our community. The link is here in the show notes. Subscribe to the show, as it can now be heard on Apple Podcasts, Google Play, Stitcher Radio, Spotify, or whatever your favorite platform to get your podcast on. If you are listening on Apple Podcasts and you find our content valuable, please give us a 5-star rating, as it will help us climb the charts and help more people find our show. Also, don't forget to sign up for the Startup Life All Access Pass to get exclusive content. This is exclusively on the Binge Podcast Network's Patreon page. And hey, if you have an idea, be about that life, the Startup Life.